I'd sincerely like to thank the ANZ Bank for their support in bringing this video to you. In part 2 of Lynda MacCallum's story, we delve further into her journey with MS and chat about some amazing coincidences in her life. Lynda, you were saying before about how you went to Sydney on your own and you wanted to do that. And I understand that. I love my solitude, and I love, I know I can be on, sometimes you need to be on your own to process things like you did. But from Jim's point of view, I was thinking about him, and I was thinking how brave of him to give you the freedom to do that, because he would love you, and he would want to be there, and he would feel he needed to be there, but he gets you. I just think that's a really powerful thing that you must have in your relationship together.
It's taken us a long time probably to get to that space where he is comfortable in doing that. And even when I come home from my little pilgrimage, he said to me, "This has shown me that I need to be more patient, and I need to let you process these things more on your own, because I know that's what you want and how you've done it." Whereas before, there was almost like a constant push and pull. He'd want to be there. I didn't really want, I wanted him to be there. Don't get me wrong. I wanted him to be there, but sometimes I just need to process. And I think you noticed, I wouldn't have written if he was there. I would not have, written those 2 pieces of writing in my journal if he was there, because I would have felt like I needed to discuss or, make light conversation or, talk about how I was feeling with him. I wouldn't have sat and really written and felt how I was feeling. I don't even think I wouldn't have seen the tattooed lady sitting on the beach, if he was there. And I think she was a metaphor for exactly what I was going through. She was there for a reason. Yeah. So I sat on the beach one morning. It was early, and I sat on the beach one morning. I couldn't sleep. It was the night after I had that bad news, and I decided to go for a swim at dawn because I just love to be in the ocean as the sun comes up. And so I went for a swim, and there were so many people, it was incredible. I love the hive of activity on the beach early in the morning. You've got so many people training and doing so many exciting things. And, amongst them was one lady sitting not far from me, and she was very tattooed from top to bottom, and she was, butt naked and just sitting there as the sun came up, and just soaking up the sun, and people were looking, and I just couldn't stop admiring her and how she just sat there. But I also couldn't help but think, what she's been through to get to that space. I don't think you come to that space just maybe you do, but I just feel like she's had a heck of a journey, and I kind of would love, you want to know. I love to share. I wish we could share those type of things. I wonder if each tattoo has a story, and, whether she's felt trauma and pain and hurt. I'm sure she has, and to just sit there in the middle of a hive of activity and meditate as the sun comes up, it's very admirable.
Yeah. How old do you think she was, Lynda?
I feel like she was probably late 20s, early 30s. But, I liken it to I have a vision of taking these experiences and helping others, especially in the horse world when it comes to competing, because I feel like for every person that's in that ring or arena or whatever, there are probably 3 on the sidelines who want to be there and just, don't feel like they have the capacity to be there, whether they doubt their own ability or whether they feel too nervous or, feel like they don't belong. And I feel like there's almost a metaphor, a likened metaphor for the lady with the tattoos, for anybody who's sitting around and you think you enter that arena or you cross that timeline and you feel like people are watching you, you lose a cow, whatever, you feel like people are watching you. But how many people are actually watching you with admiration, like I was with the lady on the beach, the tattooed lady on the beach? I sat in complete awe of her, of what she's done to get to that space. And I feel like when we compete, it's exactly the same. How many people are sitting on the sidelines wishing they could do the same, wishing they could go out there and compete with the same composure, and they don't really. If you lose a cow, it doesn't matter. They just think it's great that you're there, and the achievement sometimes is just entering that arena.
You know what's interesting is that lady, she would have no idea that she had such a huge impact on you that day when you needed it the most. That's just, she'd be blown away if she knew you were talking about her.
Absolutely. Sometimes I wonder, would she read it? And there are several other things that have come from my experience. So when I was down there was the first shark attack where someone was actually killed by a shark in 60-odd years in Sydney, a couple of beaches away from where I was staying. So I remember the afternoon when it was sort of 24 hours after I'd had my appointment, and I was deciding whether I would watch a movie or go for a swim. It was sort of dark. Not dark, sorry, but it was late in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, and I decided to watch a movie. And I remember I was engrossed in the movie. It was fantastic to get out of my own head. That's why I think it's important, to do those things in self-care. So it was good to get out of my head and think about something else. I was engrossed in a movie, but I could hear loudspeakers outside and a helicopter, and I kind of didn't think about it because I was engrossed in the movie. When the movie was finished, I switched it off, and it was 6 o'clock. I turned on the news. Shark attack, Sydney. Everything clicked. I opened the blinds, and there are people patrolling up and down the beach closed, helicopters, jet skis, whatever. And there were still people swimming, and not just swimming in the shallow part, swimming their laps out far from headland to headland. And then the daylight the next morning, when I would go to the beach, I wanted to go and swim at dawn. I didn't because of the shark attack. I opened the curtains. There are still people swimming, from headland to headland. And I started to think about that, and I was like, those people swim every single day knowing there could be a shark in that water. That's nothing new. And so for them, I guess they're thinking about, is me not swimming today worth being worried about the fact that there might be a shark out here? And the beaches were closed. They were trying to get them out of the water, and they were still out deep ocean swimming. And I have admiration for those people, because I think it's nothing different probably from I was likening it to probably a bull rider who gets on a bull knowing that they could be good, a horn could go through their heart, or just because one person gets hurt the week before doesn't mean you don't get on the bull. Or even when you enter the arena, or when I go and train on my young horses every single day, any horse. So I've had accidents. I've ended up in hospital, and we've all been through that. Any horse could trip, fall, come down on top of you, and we still saddle up. So there's no difference in that I believe than those people that are deep swimming, knowing that there'd been a shark attack.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and it's thought provoking, because if that was me, and I knew there had been a shark attack, and I saw people swimming the next morning or even that afternoon, I'd be thinking, the idiots, don't they know it was just a shark? But, maybe we're idiots too, because we still saddle up every day, like you said, or, the bull riders still get on a bull every weekend or whatever. But, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is, sure. I heard on the news, when I was watching the news, the reporters were going, and it was on the morning show the next morning, Carl Stefanovic, and the reporter went, and Carl, among all this, there are still people swimming. And, it was like with such distaste. It's like, what are these people doing? And I looked at it, I thought, no, that just would take so much courage. I admire those people from swimming in the ocean the day of a shark attack.
Yeah. I've certainly changed my way of thinking too after talking to you. Lynda, the other thing I loved about the first post, I think it was, where you talk about how people are, like, when you have, a disability, or when there's something wrong with you, people are scared to come and talk to you. And we know it in our own family. Like Gail is my sister-in-law and has no arms. So, sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, what will I say to her?" Or they go to shake a hand or something, and then they realise, and then they come back and they say, "I was so embarrassed." And Gail doesn't care, she just takes it in a stride. But what's your take on that? On people being scared to come and talk to you, or people, saying the wrong thing, or yeah.
I believe, in my experience, and I know I only know of Gail, and I've watched the Australian Story, and I admire her so much from afar, and her story of resilience, and her and Mac, what they go through, I'm in full admiration. In my experience, I don't feel like there's any right or wrong. I just feel like when somebody becomes completely distant or is completely silent, for me, in my experience, my friends who I've lost that I thought were good friends, and I've lost throughout this process because I think they don't know what to say or do. Their silence just speaks so much to me, rather than, for me, I just would love people to chat like normal. I'd love to, just to get on with it. And it doesn't even mean asking how I am every single day, but just if somebody sees me struggling, I'd love someone to acknowledge it and not walk past. I've had that happen before. And then you remember that person who comes and helps you like they are your lifeline, like nothing else. And I have had several friends that have just been so good in those situations, and others who don't know what to do and they just walk past, and they can see you're struggling. So for me, it's just the acknowledgement of not ignoring when someone is having a tough time. And I think there's more power that comes through just being there than what there is. And even when we lost our dad tragically nearly 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago, on his way to work in a car accident. My dad was a beautiful man. He was larger than life, and anyone who knew him really loved him. He was extremely humorous and the life of any room. And I still remember, I guess, the people that reached out straight away, and in that moment, even in that moment, in grief, you do remember those people. They become your lifeline again. And then you remember people who don't know what to say, so they just don't say anything. I think that's the hardest part, is when somebody does not. You don't even have to, say, what can I do? Oh my God, that's so terrible. It's just, hey, I'm here for you. What can I do? Or, do you want to catch up? Or that's all it takes. That's all it takes, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's so many different ways of looking at it, isn't there? The person that saw you struggling and walked past, did they think, I don't want to interfere because she might want to just do it on her own? Or it's so hard, isn't it? But I guess, in those cases, you just say, do you want some help, or just to be there? And
I think it depends how you've been raised too, I believe some people have been brought up in a household where you don't talk about things and you don't discuss, and you push hard conversations aside. You just never have a hard conversation, or if you're having a bad day, you just never acknowledge it or never talk about it. And I believe that carries through with you in life. It's not just as a child, you're not to talk about your problems. It's as you grow older, and then you have those people who just want to share or talk about everything, and are very easy to communicate with. And I think they're the people who find those situations maybe a little less confronting, because from their behalf, it's difficult on them as well. It's very difficult. I understand that. It's very difficult if you've been brought up in a household where you just don't talk about things. it's difficult then to go up and offer a hand to somebody when you don't know what to say. Whereas if you've been brought up in a very open, compassionate household, non-judgmental household, you probably don't have those barriers there in the first place. It's interesting. This morning, I actually, from my second post where I talked about, when I was talking about the pain I was feeling and the hurt I was feeling in that moment, I likened back, and I had a lot of hurt and pain. You know, we all have felt that hurt, you know, whether it be your first boyfriend or whether it be a boyfriend ever since, or whether it be someone you love dying, whether it be your dog, you know, being bitten by a snake. We've all felt that hurt and pain at some stage in our life. And in that moment, I just likened it to the first time that I had felt that. And it was, you know, a 14-year-old. I had a guy I had a crush on at the time, and he kissed another girl or whatever. And I remember the pain of that. It just tore me apart. I hadn't spoken to him for 27 years. He read that post and he contacted me.
Oh, my gosh.
So I've seen him around, right? But I've never spoken to him, and not just talking to him. Our lives have not really crossed paths. So I've said hello if I've seen him, whatever. So he messaged me and started to talk about how that time really hurt him too. And he didn't realise at the time, just, you know, but he has almost put up a wall ever since and decided he never wants to feel that pain again. And yeah, and so we have actually met and had coffee as a result of that post, and talked about, he's lived a very interesting life. I just love his stories and how we've started at the same spot and now we've, you know, digressed in completely different ways, but still have a very similar attitude to life, and have both overcome a lot of hardship and trauma in our lives in different ways. And he is somebody actually that we sat and talked very openly, and I'd love to talk again, because he has a good attitude on life, but he's had a lot of hardship to get there. And he said he's found it healing to talk to me, and I've found it healing to talk to him. And, all from when we were 14 and 15 years of age.
Oh, that's incredible, isn't it? And how, you know, you obviously had things to teach one another, and now you've had the opportunity to come back together and talk about that time, and that's remarkable. I did want to find out, because you said, you know, you were going to get into trouble when you got home, and I thought, I wonder if she got into trouble when she got home, or if mum sort of said, oh, well, darling, that's okay.
Yeah, no, well, it was, no, not really, probably. I would say I've always been, I'm one of 5 and 5 children, and I came a lot later in my parents' life. So there's 9 years between myself and the next sister that's up from me, and there's 15 years between myself and my oldest brother. So he actually left home when I was 6 months old. And
wow.
Yeah, so we're quite spread out, and I was by myself a lot, you know, in my childhood. So I was almost like an only child. And my mum, she said to me, she said, when I held you and you were born, she said, I wrapped you in my arms and I said, this child is going to be the perfect child, and I'm not going to make any of the mistakes I feel like I've made with any of the others with this one. And I was so lucky. I had a great childhood, but I think for me, it's probably where I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I struggle with anything that's not, you know, quite right, or giving my best, you know, I in anything that I do. And I do believe that, you know, probably I wanted to do that for my mum and be the good girl, and act like a lady. And there have been times where I definitely have not done that, and whether I got in trouble for it or I personally punished myself for it. I think that's where it's come from. Is I wanted to do that and be that person, and of course we can't all be perfect all the time.
No. And having, like, I love things to be organised and tidy and, a certain way, and but gosh, kids come along and they just change all that, don't they? And you really have to change the way you think, don't you?
Yeah, and there's no one who prepares you for that. That's the thing that I used to think about. Where's the textbook that tells me when I have these babies that, or these little children that, life's going to change and it's going to be hard and my house can't always be clean. And I remember one GP that I went to see one time when I was struggling, and he said to me, I'll never forget it, he said, "Lynda, you have to learn to let chaos reign." And I went, oh, okay, but still hard to do, I think. You try to take on that advice, but it's still not easy to do that.
Yeah. Lynda, I wanted to, I'm backtracking a little bit, but in that first post when you described so well your experience of going, having the MRI and what you have to do and what you go through and what you think, and I was thinking about that and thinking how important that is for people who've never had the experience to understand what happens. So if they have a friend that goes through it, and same with the lumbar puncture, I have an understanding of what you go through when you have a lumbar puncture, and it's important for people who've not had that experience to come from a place of compassion and empathy, because they do have an understanding. But also, if it ever happens to them, if they ever have to have a lumbar puncture, or if they ever have to go into one of those MRI machines, they will be able to come from a place of experience because of what you have written and what they know to be your experience. And I loved when you said you used it as a superpower, because, you can go through that. You can go through anything.
Yeah, my first experience of being in that machine, because it's like, it's the tiniest space. It's quite confronting, and I think unless you've done it, it's very confronting, because it's a very small tunnel, and not only that, you have this cage that's locked over your head, and one that's on your chest, and you can't move. You can't. I remember I had trouble in one of my early MRIs because I was swallowing, and they had to redo that part of the scan, which was a 20-minute scan. So it went over, went for an hour and 20. So I was glad that I'd found meditation early on, because that allowed me to put myself in that space in that moment when I went through my early ones, to sit and to lay there, and I would body scan myself, like, where am I feeling in my head? How am I feeling is my forehead crinkled? Where's my tongue sitting in my mouth? I'll go through all the body parts and how I'm feeling. And then I would start to, it took me some time to then just replay moments and replay beautiful conversations, or replay things in my mind. Like I would literally go into my mind. I have to go into my mind to be able to lay there. And it made the time go pretty quick. Because yes, they put the music on, but you can't really hear it because the machine is quite noisy. And that's how I found was the best way for me to go through that hour. And now I've done it quite a few times. Because early on I was having them every 3 months, because I was a part of a trial. I was a part of a trial treatment in the first 12 months. But now it's every 12 months. And now that I've had this bad one, I have to go every 6 months now, but I found that having that hour to myself to replay those moments, it's almost beautiful and it's almost cathartic, because when do you take that time to literally, you've got to stay in your head. You have to stay in your head. I can't get outside my head. I can't, sometimes if I'm in a space and I'm upset, there's a what would you say, an exercise that I was taught. I am here. And, I look around the room and I really take notice of what I can see. And if I could see, a leaf out the window, and I might follow each vein, and it just is very settling with breathing, just to be here in this space. But in that moment, you can't look at anything else, and you have to go into your head. And I don't want to think about sad things, so I try to think about all the beautiful things, all the beautiful people in my life that I am so grateful for, and I take myself to that space instead. And I do believe it has become a superpower, because I learn a lot about gratitude in that moment for those people and those things. Yeah.
Talking about those special people, in one of the posts, it absolutely blows me away how some friends seem to feel and know something is going on with you. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of people in my life that before I have a scan, I almost become insular, and I find I almost push people away. I'm trying to, and it's only the few days before, but I'm trying to be really brave. But as a part of that, I don't want to let people in. And I almost push people away. And I have a couple of friends who, there are people that step away in that moment because, she doesn't want to talk to me, so that's okay if that's where she's at in her mind. But then there are other people who then almost insist to share this experience with me, to make me upset through insistently ringing or sending me messages, and I might ignore, or I don't return, but they don't give up. And then or I had one girlfriend who just rang, "I'm anxious today. I have a feeling. What's going on?" And I didn't reply to her. And then she just kept sending me "What's going on? ? I'm feeling anxious about you. What's going on?" And that was on that day. And then I have another friend who just kept ringing that day and wouldn't give up until I answered. And then I had, and then I've got another friend who, he's a guy, and he's, I tend to have some really great guys that are friends, and I don't know why, but I've always radiated to that. And some of my best friends are guys, and some, I had a couple that when I was away, and we would randomly text funny or inspirational things to each other. They didn't know what was going on, but I think they could feel something that was going on. And it was afterwards, after I posted my post, that they felt what was going on, and they kind of were like, "Oh, wow." And they kind of messaged me. But on the day of it, I have another friend who I'm very good friends with, and he just kept messaging me. He messaged me silly stuff. He's not a very emotional person, but he messaged me silly stuff. And I could just tell. He knew that I was going for a scan at some point, and he just become a little light in that moment, and has been great ever since. And not overly touchy-feely stuff at all, but just things that I know are a big deal for him to reach out to me, being a rural, he's probably a very masculine person. He is very good at his craft, and very well respected in our industry. And he knows how to reach out and when to reach out, and he reaches out in a way that is really raw for him. And it means just as much as the girlfriend who rings and says, "I'm anxious for you," or the other friend that I've got who just incessantly rings or texts. And it's in those moments that you do become they become my lifeline, because you feel like you're just being tossed and turned. When I was originally diagnosed, I had other girlfriends who just come and clean my house and cook for me and took me to appointments and, just looked after me. And they are what keeps you going, really are. And it only, it's so, you never forget it. I really believe you never forget it. In that moment in your struggle, you never forget that. And things happen for a reason. I don't know. People do feel you, don't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know that just reminded me of, I don't know if you know Marie and Peter Balmain, but
yes.
So Marie is just so beautiful. And Barry had an accident and shattered his wrist last year. And the flying doctor came, took him up to Townsville. We were up at the other place. I came home and had to pack up and headed up to Townsville. And driving along, the phone rang, and it was Marie. And I thought, I wonder why Marie's ringing. And she'd had heard, how quickly news travels, she'd heard that Barry had an accident. And she said, one thing I learned when I was so sick was that I appreciated the people that rang me. And even if I didn't get to talk to them, just to know that they were thinking about me. And that's why she rang, because she'd heard, and I was so touched. And I will never, ever forget that. And so now in turn, whereas once, the fear would have been, now I won't ring them now because they, probably don't want calls or whatever. I do. I ring, and I know if they don't want to talk to me, they won't answer, or, I'll pick up and just say, I'm just thinking of you, and, just use intuition a bit, I guess. But, I think that's so important, and it's so lovely that you have such wonderful people in your life that do that. And it's a wonderful lesson to all of us.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, when you're in that moment of, it's almost grief for the person that you once were. Others who, whether it is that you've had a tragic accident or suffered an illness or you've lost a loved one, in that moment life's never going to be the same. And it's those people that, like Marie's been in contact with me a lot through my journey as well, and as a result of my writing of recent times. And it is those people that reach out to you in that moment. And so many messages I've had in the last week, and I have gradually tried to get back to people, and I know I haven't got back to everybody, and I'm really trying to do that. But the thing that I really guess I hope has come across and comes across is, in no way, shape or form did I ever share those innermost thoughts of mine. It's not for sympathy. I think it's really important that I would love to see a world where people could be more vulnerable and be themselves and be more real and raw and not be judged for it, and that we could open it up for some real connection in this lifetime. Because I feel like, as far as social media is concerned and what everybody sees from the outside, we live this perfect life, and we only put the good pictures up on social media. We all have really tough times, and we all have really bad days. And when I was going through and sitting in that neurologist office, I'm like, I'm not the only one getting this news today. And other people, imagine those people that are getting the news of, we found this, you've got this much time. That's what touched me. I felt so much like, I'm not the only one getting this news today. I'm going to be okay. Some people aren't. So to get some type of understanding where we can sit and we can talk about how we feel in that moment, especially in rural and regional Australia, that is my vision for what I would love to see in our lifetime. Because I think we try to pretend that we've got it all together and we have this perfect life, and everyone goes through the daily struggles, and I think that's what makes us real.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to finish, Lynda, our chat. And I've kept you for such a long time, but gosh, and I could just keep dissecting, by all of those posts. But I hope you write your book one day very soon. I just think it'll be a bestseller.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I think I will keep it up. And where it takes me, I would love to write a book one day. So it's becoming clearer, and you sit there and you think about an idea, but as time goes on, it evolves. And I think the biggest thing is just to delve in, and that's what I'm going to try and do. I think is to start, putting something together. I'm also going to start a business where I'm going to do some coaching and some clinics in the performance horse world, but also mostly around preparing for performance and mindset, but taking also, your well-being and health at the core of what you do, and preparing to get into the arena, no matter what area of horsemanship you're in. And here at our place, we're trying to set up, we'd love to have some wellbeing and wellness retreats as well, so we can share some of these stories and share our journey and some of that mindset when we want to compete or going through life. And that's my vision for the future. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I've got a really good team that are helping me put that together. So hopefully you'll see that progress in the next few years.
Yeah. Oh, and Lynda, you've taken something that is a devastating blow to you and your family, and you're turning it into something really, really, really wonderful. And your compassion and the way you put words together are going to have such a huge impact on people. I know how I felt when I read it and read those posts, just those two that you put up, and just speaking to you, you're very special. So thank you very much.
Okay. I thank you so much, and thank you for having me on your program. And hopefully we will see you very soon.
I'm sure we will. It will be lovely to meet you in person one day.
Definitely.
One day soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynda.
Thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please try to remember to just click on the subscribe button so we can keep you updated with everything that's happening. Thank you.